Hey there, it's Kat and this is Brews and Reviews. Today I want to talk to you guys about all the books that I read in November. This month was an incredibly busy month for me, so while not reading fewer books than I normally do, I read smaller books than I normally do. By a bit. So in November I read 15 books. 5 were ebooks, 4 were manga. Technically they are all the same manga, but just split out into different volumes, which is a bit weird, but that's how I read them, so that's how I'm counting them. I had 1 physical book and 5 audiobooks. My ratings breakdown were that I had 7 3-star books, 6 4-star books, and 2 5-star books. So let's get into this. So the first little short story that I read this month was called Riding the Headless Horseman. This is like a hangover from the fact that it was just Halloween, like the day before I read this, because I read it on the 1st of November. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what it says. A Halloween romance with the Headless Horseman, who is in fact headless. And it's so bizarre. If you put like a really bizarre Halloween smut book, then you should definitely pick that up. It's only like 50 pages long. It just really tickled me. Like there's a whole thing about how his headlessness is... He is headless, so some of it's really interesting. It wasn't bad though. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so it was like not a waste of my time to read. The next 4 books I'm going to talk about I'm going to lump into one, because as I said before, this manga is one manga. I just happen to have read it spread out into 4 volumes because that's how they were on Kindle Unlimited. The manga I'm talking about is Tomie by Junji Ito, and this is the second Junji Ito manga that I've read. And I've got to say that I didn't enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed Uzumaki. I found that I didn't particularly, get the concept. Essentially, this story is about a girl called Tomie who gets murdered, and her class decide to chop her into little bits and distribute them everywhere, except she regrows from every little bit. So every time that this girl is killed, she regrows. And there's this weird thing where men want to kill this girl. They're driven to it. They love her and they want to murder her. And they do, and they chop her up, and then she comes back because every piece grows back. There's just infinite Tomies, and it's really weird. There were some really creepy stories, but I just don't think that it was ever really going anywhere. They just seem to be this creature girl thing is in this scenario, and, that's what happens. There doesn't seem to be an end point. There doesn't seem to be is it the thing where it replicates so much that everybody else dies? I don't know. It's bizarre, and I give it 3 out of 5 stars as a book overall because I just don't think it ever really went anywhere, and I was a bit disappointed in that. But yeah, it was fine. There were some creepy moments. It's probably worth reading, but it's not the first Junji Ito book that I would pick up, so. The next book that I picked up was Loveless by Alice Oseman. This is one I've been saying I'm going to read for ages, and I finally did, and I'm so glad I did, and I'm really mad at myself for not having picked it up sooner. I'm sure a lot of you guys know the style of writing that Alice Oseman does, with a lot of characters facing going to uni for the first time, and this one follows a couple of characters who go to the same uni and sort of making new friends, and the main character trying to figure out if she can fall for people. She really is desperate for love and really wants to fall in love, but when actually faced with it, she's not interested. I think there's some really interesting discussions around people's sexualities and ace and arrow representation. I just think that's really important, and I really liked how it was done in this book. I liked the other things that were happening in the book with other characters as well, but I just found that was really impactful and I really enjoyed it. To be totally honest, I just enjoyed everything about this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and if you haven't read it yet, then you definitely should. The next book that I picked up was a birthday gift from Kayla from Crack Into a Good Book, and it is The Appeal by Janice Hallett. And I have to say, the first thing that I noticed about this book is that I hate the cover. But I'd put it on a wish list for a reason, and I couldn't remember the reason why, and then I started reading it, because we did this as a buddy read as well. It's so good. I was so invested in this book, and I really wasn't expecting to be. So this book is a multimedia book where there are a lot of emails, texts, correspondence, different forms of communication that are all compiled, and there's a couple of people reviewing them and trying to figure out what has happened, because somebody has been murdered and you don't find out until halfway through the book who has been murdered, and you're trying to figure out who is lying about different things and who in fact murdered this person. And I just think it was so interesting. Even at the beginning, not a lot is happening, but also I'm so invested in the conversations that this drama group is happening and what's going on, and I don't want to say anything else because I just feel like you just have to sit there and read this one and you will have so many theories. In fact, Kayla and I had so many theories that we actually were a little bit disappointed with what happened, but I kind of think that that would always happen because you build up so many different thoughts that this could happen or this could happen, and then when it actually happens you're like, oh right, okay, cool. Like, I'm not actually disappointed, but because I had so many theories, like I was like, oh yeah, it was that person, okay. You know? I don't know if you know. I don't think I explained that very well, but it's fun and you should read it. I definitely really enjoyed this one, even though I wasn't expecting to. 5 out of 5 stars. The next one I picked up because of the title, because it amused me. It's Kink Camp Hunted. So, sorry mum! Funnily enough, that's not even the worst thing that I've read this month. So yeah, this book is, what it said on the tin really. It's about a camp for kinky people. The main character is new to the whole thing and sees this notice about somebody seeking to do some sort of predator-prey thing, and they go off and do it, and it's like a sort of unraveling relationship thing. It was alright. I've not seen that done before. I mean, its formula was vaguely similar to a lot of other these types of romance books, but at the same time I don't think you see this particular thing explored very often, so it was interesting and I liked it. It was, yeah, it was good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's quite nice to read about like this sort of content in a non-shameful setting, and like everybody was like into different things, but like nobody was shaming each other for any of the things that we're into, and that's quite nice to read about, because a lot of the time when you read about this sort of thing there's always like a character in it that is like, ew, and I just don't want to read about that. I just like let people enjoy what they enjoy, and like, you know. So the next 2 books I'm going to talk about together because they are part of the same series, and I did actually manage to finish this series this month. I'm very happy with that. I picked up Aurora Burning and Aurora's End by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the second and third book in the Aurora cycle, or I don't know what it's called. I actually really enjoyed these books, the third one more than the second one. I think the second one definitely had middle book syndrome, and like I don't want to talk too much about any of the things that happen in these books, as I feel like they would be very spoilery for things that happen in the first one. So I'm going to be quite vague when I talk about these, but the second one was definitely the weakest, but it did have a cliffhanger that made me need to pick the next one up straight away, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. I think picking up the third one straight after was a good choice. I quite like it when I do that with series because it makes it feel like one story, like rather than like leaving it for ages and then having to pick it up and get back into it. I feel like it definitely benefited from me having read it straight after the second one. As I said about the first book in the series, there's some fun stuff with the found family, space adventure-y time. Mostly less fun stuff in the second and third one because there was a lot more of the dark bit and the sadness times. But I still enjoyed it. I think the second book struggled because it did have like a whole training montage time in it, and I was like, I don't really care about this, it's always what it is. But the third book bounced back with some timey-wimey things that I found quite interesting, and I was definitely here for that. Also, I definitely cried a little bit. It was quite sad about some things that happened, and yeah, I actually ended up enjoying them, which I'm quite glad about because I've heard mixed things, and I was just hoping that I would enjoy it for like a fun space story, and I think that's what I got out of it. Also, it made me want to reread Illuminae, so I'll probably do that in the new year. I gave Aurora Burning 3 stars, and I gave Aurora's End 4 stars. The next book that I picked up was Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Now, I know a lot of people dislike this book, and I can sort of understand why, but I had fun with this book. I enjoyed it. It was a nice time. So let's talk about the book. This book follows Bee, who gets her dream job at NASA, only to find out she is sharing the job with the guy that hated her at uni. So that's fun. There's a lot of different things going on. I like the sciencey side of it. I like the relationship, even though Bee is so dumb sometimes about how she reacts to what Levi is saying. Levi is the traditional, really tall love interest, with that being most of his personality, but you know, I'll take it, it's fine. Now, my main problem with this book came with the end, which came completely out of left field and was just really bizarre. And actually, I want to talk about the reasons I find this so bonkers. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm going to spoil the ending now, so come back when I've put this book down if you ever plan to read it and you haven't read it yet, okay? You gone? Great. They work at NASA, right? NASA. So you'd think that working in NASA, there would be like metal detectors and, you know, security guards, like all the time, 24/7. You would think, right? Well, no, some guy brings a gun into NASA, which I feel like there would be like rules against. Somebody would have found out anyway, and he tries to shoot the main character because she found out that he'd sabotaged the thing, which was also mental because he could have given himself absolute brain damage when he did that, which was one thing that was weird. And there's like a fight at the end with a cat that's come out of nowhere and decided to scratch up the gunman. And then like Levi comes out of nowhere to tackle the guy, and I was like, why are you all there in the middle of the night? Why has he got a gun, and why has nobody stopped this man? And why is he trying to kill her for finding stuff out? I mean, I know he's trying to cause like corporate sabotage, but at the same time, like, is that a reason for murder? Maybe NASA should vet people a little bit better before they like let them in, because weird. Anyway, I liked it apart from that. So you remember how I said that I had read something weirder than Kink Camp Hunted? Well, it's this one. I read Full Sack, a Thanksgiving erotica. So I definitely picked this one up because of the name. Because when you see that cover and read that name, how can you not pick that up? Because I just thought it'd be really funny. I mean, I have no connection to Thanksgiving whatsoever because I am British, but it was really fun to read this on Thanksgiving and be like, wow, this is bonkers. I mean, like, whatever you think is going to happen in this book, it's so much more wild than that. Because it's about a woman who goes to this man called Raccoon to try and save her cat from dying, and he exchanges wishes for blowjobs. And he's like, no, I don't want a blowjob from you. Because what I actually want is to come to your house for Thanksgiving. And she's like, no, wait, my family are crazy. And he's like, no, let's go. Okay, so she agrees, and they go to her family's house, and they are crazy, and there's like smart aspects to it. And then he decides, he's like, right, let me show you how my magic works and why I exchange blowjobs. She's like, okay. So she's like going down on him, and he's like, what do you want, by the way? And she's like, oh, I don't know, like anything? And he's like, yeah, just anything. And she's like, okay, a toaster. So she's going down on him, and while that is happening, by the way, he has changed the flavor of his excretions to apple cider flavor, and then later some sort of buttered rum, which is weird in itself. But while she's going down on him, his sack is becoming more full, and long story short, toaster pops out of his dick. Shoots right out. And actually, that's not the worst thing that gets wished up in this. At one point, it's the turkey, which then her family eat. Anyway, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars because it was absolutely bonkers, and it really, just, I don't know, it gave me amusement, which is what I picked it up for. So I feel like 3 out of 5 stars is merited. Anyway, if you want to read that, I think it's on Kindle Unlimited, and it's only about like 120 pages, but it is purely hilarious, and you should definitely try it out. The next book I picked up was Sweet Talk by Cara Bastone, and this is the second book in the Love Lines trilogy. I think I read the first book in September, and I didn't realise that they were connected, so I probably would have read this sooner if I had. This is about the brother of the main character from the first one, and I liked the first one. I thought it was really cute, so I decided to pick this one up, and this was really cute too. It's about a guy who texts the wrong number in the middle of the night because he can't sleep, and then the wrong number texts back, and they start doing voice notes to each other. Well, he knows that she's not the person that he was trying to contact. He doesn't know who she is. He only knows that she knows him, and like he's trying to guess who she is. And they sort of develop this relationship, but she won't tell him who she is, and it's cute. I liked it a lot. I'm very glad that I read it. It made me want to pick up the next one, which I will do in December. Also, it was really nice to see some dyslexic representation, so if you're looking for that, it is in this book. The next book that I picked up was The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. And this is a book I actually only picked up because we were talking about it in Mel, from a book fiend named Mel's 1,000 subscriber live stream. And we were talking about it in the live, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll just pick it up. And then I did. And I'm really glad I did, because I definitely wouldn't have picked this book up without the push towards it because of the tone, because it's quite sad, but it's also poignant, and I don't know, it's a really hard one to explain because it is essentially about this, I think they're a monk, a non-binary monk, and their like bird creature. Really struggling to remember what the characters and creatures are called. But they go and collect stories and memories and details, and they go to this lake and they meet this woman and they have this conversation with her, and it's all about the Empress of Salt and Fortune. and it's just so interesting. I think it's just a really nice exploration of hearing memories and properly listening and not forgetting things, and I liked it a lot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And then lastly, I read a book called Snooty. I definitely picked this one up because it was free on Audible, and it was only about an hour and a half. So it was really quick, because I just wanted to read something Christmassy that I was like, oh, you know, it's just get me in the mood for Christmas sort of thing. And it's about a woman who's trying to get to France to spend the holiday with her engaged partner, I was gonna say. Not sure why I was gonna say that. Anyway, she's trying to get to Paris to be with her fiance on Christmas, and the train gets stuck because of snow, and she ends up sort of walking around this remote Italian town with this guy that was stuck on the train with her, and she's trying to figure out what she actually wants. And it was cute. It was very short. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I think I was doomed to sort of feel like, oh, I wish this was longer, because it is so short. Anyway, those are all the books that I read in November, and I'm honestly surprised that I read so many because I was just super busy. I've been in Copenhagen and Chester and doing a bunch of things with friends, and I've just been so busy, so that any books got read this month is an achievement. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!